Welcome everyone to this week's episode of The Rutledge Perspective. And once again, I have an amazing woman as my guest on this episode. And I got a chance to meet her in another event that we had where we had experts come in. And I was just so taken with her experience and her perspective that I was like, you have to be on The Rutledge Perspective. So Janice, thank you so much for being here and being my guest today.
Thank you for the invitation. So sweet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to read a little bit of Janice's bio. And per usual, you'll be able to get her whole bio when you download the episode, because that'll be in the show notes. And also the video will be on my website. So you'll be able to see all of those, either just do the audio or video. So Janice Hale-Harris is a seasoned professional in leadership strategies with extensive experience in achieving the best in human capital. Currently, she leads organizational development and strategy for waste management. However, what I like about Janice is these other things that she's done as well. She was the president of KH Technologies, Inc., providing coaching and consulting for business leaders, NBA and NFL players, which is kind of cool. She also served as senior vice president and general manager for Hecht Harrison's South Texas area. And in that role, she utilized her extensive experience providing world's leading names in business with a variety of career transition services, as well as executive coaching and leadership development. Janice has an MBA from Texas Women's University and a BS in communications from Syracuse University. She is also a master certified DDI facilitator, an Insights facilitator. I love Insights, by the way. A Berkman facilitator, Arbinger facilitator, and a certified spiritual director. Janice is also Hogan Assessment Specialist. So you name it and she can do it. She has also authored a short story and a journal series entitled Hand in Hand, a way to have meaningful physical connection to friends and family no matter where they reside. So Janice, I am so excited to have this conversation.
Well, thank you. I kept thinking, who is she reading about? But
we forget sometimes, I remember this was many, many years ago when I was looking to transition into another role, and I went and did a video kind of resume thing. And this is before video was big. Little did I know that I was cutting edge. And I need to find that, by the way. And I remember the guy asking me questions. So how did you do the things you did? And I was like, I don't know. I just did them. And he said, that's the challenge with executives, because they do really great stuff, but they can't really tell you how they did it. They just do it, right? So when we see ourselves in print, it's like, wow, I did kind of accomplish some cool stuff. So, So tell us, Janice, let's start with kind of what you're doing now. So you're at Waste Management. Talk a little bit about your role and what you're doing and kind of the impact you're having where you are.
Sure. So right now I'm at Waste Management. I am responsible for leadership development and organizational effectiveness. In that role, I work primarily with creating how we're going to teach our leaders to be better leaders. So leadership, whether it's at the entry level for supervisors, I spend the majority of my time, though, working with senior managers and senior leaders. So we've had the opportunity just recently to complete a process for our area vice presidents. And these are people who run like billion-dollar sections of our business. And so we just did our first 16-week program with them and just got phenomenal rave reviews. So I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah.
And so when you think about that kind of organizational effectiveness piece and working with these leaders, what I tell people is, as you continue to move up the ladder, it's more about your ability to navigate, and it's not so much your technical skill anymore. It's your ability to have good political savvy and your ability to navigate kind of the culture and the business. So when you think about these leaders, like these folks running billion-dollar sections, what are the key things that you see in this role that you are helping these leaders move through?
Yeah. So we looked at it with a couple of goals in mind. It's really about helping them learn strategy in a different way. So many of the people in our organization grew up in the business, so they've kind of moved up the ladder. We haven't always done a great job of giving them the tools that they need as they make those transitions. To your point, they really need to be more savvy in other ways. We're not as interested in their technical skills. We don't want our CEO to drive a truck, but we want him to understand what the process is and why it's important for him to understand what those folks do. So we looked at it and we said, what are the two areas that we think we can impact that will help the individual and help their business, their piece of the business that they're running. So we really looked at strategy. That was a really important piece. Most people say, I already know strategy. Once they went through this, they recognized that the way one person approaches strategy may be very different. We paired it with Hogan assessments. So people were able to look at what were the things that might be derailers for them that keep getting in their way, so they're not able to achieve the strategic strides that they're really want to accomplish.
Right. I love that. And because I always tell people, it's whether you're building a career or building a business, it all comes down to strategy and people. Because
Absolutely.
if you don't know where you're going, how do you know who needs to be on your team? Right.
That's very, very true.
And when you think about, these folks, because especially those people who are running businesses that are really growing fast, or people who are running teams or beginning to run teams, one of the challenges that I found throughout my career as well, and you mentioned it because we've talked about waste management being one of those places that really does do a lot of promotion from within. That movement from which is great, right? You have a really great opportunity to have people who do learn the business, and once they get up there, know the business. The downside of that is that they don't really necessarily have a lot of exposure to stuff that's outside. Right. And that movement from colleague to boss is a tough move.
It is a very tough move. And we are really beginning to recognize how we can help people do that in a better way. I would say over the last 3 or 4 years, but typically someone is, your peer, then they become your boss, and they're lost because we haven't given them the tools to help them even make that transition. So we're really working to change that.
Well, and it really is, I think, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about your journey here, but that movement from really focusing on how you execute, right? And the tactical stuff and learning as an individual to really being able to grow, and that mental transition too of, yes, you're on my team and we're getting stuff done together, to now I've got to be clear about objectives. I got to tell you what I want. I've got to give you feedback. That movement and that mindset shift is not just about, oh, today I'm a boss. It's much bigger than that.
It definitely is. We actually spend quite a bit of time asking people to focus on mindset, because nothing else can happen until that mindset shift happens. Yes. So no matter how great you think you are as a leader, if you're still thinking like an individual contributor, it won't work. Long term, it just doesn't work for you.
I love that. And so as you look back, talk to us a little bit about your journey, kind of this education piece, the certifications that you got, kind of, and why you did that led up to here, in particular, that movement from corporate to kind of doing your own thing and then back to corporate.
So it's really interesting, because before I actually went to college, I knew that I wanted to do something that was going to have an impact on people. But you don't know at 22 what that looks like. So I just didn't know. So I thought, I'll get a degree in communications and I'll get involved in media, because there I can be a voice of the people. So I actually spent the first 7 years of my career doing the morning news at an NBC affiliate in Buffalo, New York. So my undergraduate degree is in communications. And after doing that, I realized that they were only concerned with ratings. The money was not what it looks like on the outside, and the reporters and anchors, they work really, really hard, for their money and for the things that they do, and decided that at that point, maybe I just needed to make money. So I left and eventually moved to Houston, did a number of roles. I worked for AT&T for about 5 years in sales and marketing. And from there, I went on to Microsoft, had an amazing career working with them for 9 years. And in that, I realized that making money was great. But, even as little children, we kind of know what it is that really makes our heart thump, the things that we really enjoy doing. But I didn't know how to get there. And when I left Microsoft, I actually was introduced to someone at Hecht.
Mm-hmm.
And when the gentleman met me, he said, "You are not what I expected." And I'm thinking, I don't know what you expected.
Right?
And he said, "I just expected you to be more technical."
Mm.
And I said, "But I manage people. I work in the technology industry, but I manage people." And he said, "We have a role that's coming up for a senior vice president in Houston." Now, mind you, I had retired, so to speak, from Microsoft while my children were in middle school and high school. So I hadn't worked in 3 or 4 years. And I said, well, this might be interesting.
Right.
So we go through the process. I get the job and I realize this is really what I wanted to do, but didn't know it even existed at 22. I wanted to be in the room where I'm working with senior leaders, helping them make decisions that made a difference. One short story I'll tell you is we were doing an outplacement, and this is when ExxonMobil was merging. And I met a gentleman, and he was almost in tears, had been at Exxon for 31 years, and he was being downsized. And he said to me, "Whatever you do, don't let your job be more important than your family." He said,
"I hear that."
Pardon? Yeah.
I was like, listeners, did you hear that?
Oh, yes.
Pay attention.
And he said, "I spent 31 years here, but I didn't know my son. And now my son doesn't want me to have anything to do with my grandchildren." And at that moment, I knew I was in the right place doing the right kind of work. I needed to just kind of create, how do I bring the best of me, what I believe is really important, to make a difference one person at a time or one group of people at a time. And that was something I needed, and I needed experience. I needed life experiences to bring to the table to really create the kind of impact that I could have for others.
Well, and what's so key is several things that you said in there that I think we've talked about a lot on the Rutledge perspective. And one of those things is, at 22, and we hear so many people now, at 22, we want you, this whole generation of people, follow your passion, and they get into something and they're not passionate about it, so they just leave. But do you really know what you're passionate about at 22? You just don't. I don't care how bright you are. No. You just don't. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, but learn. I mean, because the other thing you said was, now you had life experience. As you went into Hecht, you had life experiences that gave you something that was of value to bring to the table. And you and I talked about this when we met again and just had kind of a meet and greet, which is, we talk a lot about how bright people are and getting new talent in. And there's things that they know that we don't know simply because they had access to things very early that we didn't, right? We're still learning. That's wonderful. And there is still value to having experience, to have gone through some battles and have those battle scars, right?
Absolutely.
There's still value in that. And so when you look at that move, so you move to Hecht, tell me about how that value, that experience, even having decided I'm going to retire for a little bit, right? And really spend some time with my family and then go back. Tell me about how that value you think really brought something different for you to be able to help people.
Yes. It was the first opportunity that I had to be introduced to executive coaching. So I didn't know anything about that before then. I didn't know that people hired folks to help them figure out their life or figure out their careers. And I was like, this is something I think I can be good at. People told me often that I was a really good listener. My children would tease me because literally I could be standing in the line at the grocery store and somebody would just start telling me their story. And my children were like, why are they talking to you? And how do you attract these people? So I knew that I had that gift. I just didn't know how to use it. Being at Hecht taught me how to use the gift, how to not only be a good listener, but listen with my head and my heart. And that was what people were missing. People want you to listen with your heart. So you're not just giving them the first thing that comes, to the top of your mind. You're not just saying, oh, go read another book. But if I'm listening with my head and my heart, then I'm able to ask you the questions to help you find the answer, because 9 times out of 10, you know what that answer is. You just need
Yes.
some help uncovering it. And then,
Yes.
so I started getting the certification so I could really understand the craft better. So I had the physical battle scars. Now I needed some education to go with it so I could couple the two and really be helpful to people.
And that's just amazing. I had a conversation with someone last week on the podcast, or earlier this week, and it was the same thing. As she decided to move forward and move back into corporate, we talked about this movement and how so many people think it's up or out, right? You got to move up, you got to move up, and they don't think about lateral moves as being valuable, and they definitely don't think about taking a role that might be lower than to move up as being valuable. And she talked about it being, looking at it as a downshift, right? Not a failure, but a downshift, which spoke
Mm-hmm.
to me because I'm a car girl. I love cars. And so that whole idea of going downshifting, where you get a lot more torque, a lot more power in the wheels, so
Mm-hmm.
that you can really climb that mountain, putting more tools in your toolbox. I think that's the piece that sometimes people forget, is that, yes, you have this really great knowledge and book learning, as they say, as the old folks used to say, you
Right.
got book learning. And then you have this really great experience.
Mm-hmm.
But the combination of the two is what's so powerful as you move forward.
No,
So
that is
powerful.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely true. I think, when you talk about moving up as being the only way around, it's interesting because I did move up. So I became a
Mm-hmm.
senior vice president and general manager. And while
Mm-hmm.
that was amazing, I knew that it wasn't the be all and end all of my life. I've never
Yes.
been one to say this title makes me who I am, because I feel like people have so much more to give than the titles that we assign to them.
Yes.
So after all of that, one of the things that happened is I worked a lot with executives, and part of that was bringing in other resources to help them. And I met a woman who sold franchises, and she was
Mm-hmm.
talking to a lot of our executives about selling franchises. And
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to find out more about that. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, let me see if there's something that might be a passion for me. So I
Right.
actually left my job and
Mm-hmm.
bought a Massage Envy, therapeutic massage at an
Love that.
affordable price.
Mm-hmm.
And I owned it for 4 years, and I don't think I've ever worked harder in my life.
Right.
In my life.
Yes.
But those were invaluable learnings as well. I'd never managed hourly people before.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to do a massage. So imagine a therapist saying, my energy's not right today. I just don't think I can work. And you're like, okay, but the book is
Uh-huh.
full.
Right.
I need you to come in. And so I really had to tap into a different skill set. And that was
Yes.
the head and the heart. That
Mm-hmm.
served me to get people to come to work, to not steal from me, because when you're running a
Yes.
business like that, that is also an issue. And for
Mm-hmm.
people to genuinely enjoy having me as their boss. And that was very important to me. And that was head and heart. But when I got done, I said, if I ever go back to work full time, I am going back to corporate America, and I'm going to be happy. So
Right.
I'm going to be happy there.
Yes, I love that. And that's the thing. I think, I always tell business leaders, especially women-led businesses, it's about leading with your heart and acting with your head, right? It's
Hmm.
that head and heart.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes we get so caught up, especially if we haven't been in corporate, right? Where you've got that business compliance, all that stuff drilled into you, where sometimes your heart gets set aside. Many women-led businesses are very much heart-led businesses. They got into business because it was something that was going to make an impact. It's something that we knew would solve a problem. But then we get so caught up in, but we want to be nice and we want to be kind and we want to take care of everybody and we want
Hmm.
our employees to be family and all that stuff that's beautiful. And you have a business to run. And
Absolutely.
it's not unkind, to be clear. It's not unkind to set expectations, right? So that whole thing you talk about, especially with executives, learning how to listen and act with their head and their heart,
Mhm.
right? It's a combination. It's
Yes.
a combination.
I think, one of the things I find interesting, because today they say most young people will have 5 different careers. Well, clearly I was ahead of my time. So
Me too.
I've had like, 5 different careers. But one of the
Right.
things that's, that's so interesting to me is that if we trust the process, every experience we have makes us better. So while running the Massage Envy was challenging for lots of other reasons,
Mm-hmm.
it prepared me to work with leaders at Waste Management who are managing hourly employees. But
Right.
who knew that at the time? But if we know that everything that happens comes to make us better and we believe that, then we can take those lessons and we can use them and apply them in other places.
I love that. As you see all these memes all the time, right? I know I never fail, I just learn,
Right.
right? And so that whole idea of just saying yes, because when I look back at my career, my goodness, I never would have thought I'd go from accounting to, internal audit to MBA to professional services to ultimately HR. I couldn't have
Yep.
planned that if I wanted to, right? But all of those pieces led me to be able to be the senior level HR executive that I was able to be for the fourth largest chemical company, right, in Europe. And then
Mm-hmm.
to be able to then start this journey because I have that experience, those battle scars, right? And also that drive for a higher purpose to serve more people. And you
Absolutely.
never know how that's going to come, ever.
You
Just
never know. And it's always a surprise. And if you like surprises, then
right,
life is the place where
right.
you should be.
Absolutely. And to, as you said, kind of just to trust the process, learn to just say yes to stuff. Now, if something truly feels like it's not aligned, yeah, you probably need to walk away from that and say no, because sometimes rejection is protection, right?
Right.
You need to say no to those things, but don't let fear keep you from just saying yes to stuff because you never
Absolutely.
know what that's going to mean for you going forward.
And I
You
often
never
tell
know.
people if you don't know, then at the moment, don't do anything. And then just ask the universe, ask God to show you the next right thing to do. It may not be
Right.
the end of the line, but it's going to be the
Mm-hmm.
next right thing for you. And if you
Absolutely.
trust that, then the next right thing will lead you to the next right thing and the next
Right.
right thing after that. And so we
Right.
sometimes don't trust ourselves because we've been listening to others and
Yes.
we've looked at other people's journeys. We look at their Instagram posts or their Facebook
Mm-hmm.
page and we say, oh my goodness, I should be doing X. And all we really need
Yes.
to do is the next right thing for us.
Absolutely. I was just talking to my trainer this morning as I was doing my staying on my plan, right, to do my exercise this morning. And I said, I don't know what's going on, but I am getting more ads now about take this course because you don't have to do all this stuff in social media. I can tell you how to do 2 years of content in 30 seconds. I can tell you how to, and I think it is so easy to look at all of that stuff and say, "Oh, I'm so far behind. Oh my gosh, nobody's gonna come to my class where I'm gonna serve because it doesn't matter or my message isn't." And that whole idea of stepping back and saying, "What have I learned? What value do I bring that is going to solve a problem for someone else?" And really
Right.
focusing on the problem solving piece as opposed to just I just want somebody to just, write me a check to be in this class because that perspective is one that is going to tend to block your blessings, so to speak.
Yeah, that's funny because I just noticed an ad, I guess it was an ad, an email that I received today about these internet classes and how to, I was like, I have never gotten anything
Yes.
like that before. It like
Mm-hmm.
network after work and here are all the things you
Right.
can do. I was just like, where did I get this from? Let me erase this
Right.
before I get sucked in and think
Yeah.
I should be doing this. Maybe I'm on the wrong path. I don't know.
Yes. Yes. Well, and that I think is another key piece is get really clear, even if you don't know exactly what it is that you
Hmm.
want to do, but if you can get really clear on why you are moving and why you are doing the things you're doing, it really helps you to look at some of that stuff and say, okay, I know that's like, squirrel, I
Right,
know that's the next
exactly,
thing,
exactly.
but is this really something that makes sense for me right now? Or is this just the
Mhm.
next shiny object that I'm trying to, pursue because that's the next thing and that's the thing that people are doing now? And you still
Exactly.
got to do you. You still got to do you. Because the people who need you will find you.
Absolutely. They will find you. And
Mm-hmm.
others who've had the opportunity to experience you will tell people about you.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's, because people who've experienced good often want to share that good with others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are what, 7 billion people on this planet?
Yeah, about
There
that
is
many.
plenty to go around for everyone,
Yes,
right? So the
absolutely.
the people who look for you are not necessarily going to be people who look for me, or the people who look for someone else. Everybody needs something a little bit different, and so you never know, and you can't be so upset, even in work, right? Even if you're
Right,
running a business and you're an executive, not everyone is going to love you as their boss.
right,
And guess
absolutely
what?
not.
Having people love you is not in your job description.
No, it's
It's
not.
not. It is not. It's okay. You do want people to respect you, and you want people to follow you and understand your vision and those kind of things. You do want
Mhm.
that, but you don't have to be best friends with everybody you work with, colleagues or employees or superiors or subordinates.
Right.
That's not necessary.
No.
So go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just going to say that I just think it's really important, though, as people move up in leadership, that they find that sounding board so
Yes.
that they still are good listeners, because all too often
Yes.
we get all these yes people around us. So we don't
Mm-hmm.
really hear the heartbeat of what's really going on. And it's important for them to find those safe spaces where they can have kind of that true and authentic conversation happen.
That is so important. That is so important. I think we even talked about that on the group that you visited for us, which
Hmm.
is, you need to have people around you that are going to support you and lift you up and pull you up when you're down. But
Right.
you also need to have those people, true mentors, not friends, true
Absolutely.
mentors who are also going to pull your coattails and say, you might want to rethink that, right? Or that didn't quite go the way
Exactly.
you think it went, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you look back over everything that you've done, and how you have moved around and built, and the risks that you've taken and the things that you've learned, what is maybe the thing that surprised you the most along your journey?
Working for Microsoft probably surprised me the most,
Mm-hmm.
because now I went to work for Microsoft before Windows. If anybody remembers that
Okay.
there was a world before Windows, I was there. And
Yes.
it was a small, I mean, I'm talking about a teeny tiny ad in the newspaper. And back
Mm-hmm.
then it was called a blind box ad. So I didn't even know
Ah.
who the company was.
Mm-hmm.
But the ad kept appearing, and I said, these people must be really having a hard time finding folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I applied for the job and was hired with one interview. And you
Wow.
can't even get into Microsoft today doing that, but with one
Right.
interview. And it was because I understood the graphical user interface from
Mm-hmm.
another job that I'd had that I just absolutely hated. And
Mm-hmm.
not even worth going into here,
Right.
because things in life have changed so much, and not just for me, but
Absolutely.
for women in the workplace. So this was
Yes.
definitely a challenge. This particular company was a challenge for women in the workplace.
Mm.
But
Mm-hmm.
as a result, I had learned the graphical user interface and got
Mm-hmm.
hired at Microsoft. And the people that I met and the opportunities that I was exposed to were beyond anything I could have ever imagined.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing that was difficult, though, about that is there were lots of people around us who didn't believe in computers, who
Ah,
felt
yes.
that there was something not healthy or right about dealing with computers.
Right. Sis.
And people thought, why are you, particularly as a Black woman,
Mm-hmm.
getting involved in this technology? You know, Black folks don't do technology. Now you can't
Mm-hmm.
keep us off of
Right.
technology. But
Right.
at that time, we're talking, the late 80s, early 90s, it was foreign in general, and
Right.
especially foreign, to people of color. And so that was
Mm-hmm.
a real challenge to go and say, this is so exciting. You guys just don't know what you're missing.
Right.
And have people say, yeah, I don't know what's wrong with you for messing with that stuff. So,
Right. 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 Oh, and I do remember, because I was at Texas Instruments when we had Texas Instruments computers with
hmm
just the green screen,
right,
right? And the DOS
exactly.
stuff.
DOS, yep,
Yeah, yeah, yep.
yep,
So dating myself, but I remember that. And the floppy disk, the five and a quarter, was it?
GW
We've come such a
Basic,
long
all of
way.
it. Yep.
Yes. Oh, we've come such a long way. Well, even with that surprise, then along those same lines, what has been, or what would you tell people would be the two key learnings that you have had over your career so far? Because we're still learning and growing, right? But so far.
Every day, every day. One is that you can learn from anybody,
Mm,
and to never feel that you know so much that there aren't times where you can learn from others. And that's really important. And it could be the smallest thing that happens that can shift your day, shift your
yeah.
mindset. If you're just really open to listening to what other people have to tell you, that you want to be curious. Well, what
Mm-hmm.
makes you think that? I had someone call me yesterday to tell me about a business idea. And this is someone I don't even work with anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she said, I was in a meeting and they were talking about some things, and I thought about you. And I said, if anybody could do this, Janice could do this.
Mm,
Wow, what a wonderful thing. I'm going to pursue this and figure out how to make this
yes.
happen. And so just staying open to others and really being willing to just kind of listen, even things that seem crazy, to listen to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would say the second thing is, don't give up your moral compass for the good of a dollar,
Mm,
because the dollar will
that's
come
good.
to you in the most perfect way if you honor your moral compass.
Ah, I love that. I love that because, and you said earlier about pursuing a title, right? That was never your thing. And we are so much, I think, as you said, we're so much more than the title we give ourselves, right? Or the title we give to others. And it's the same thing with money. Not all money is good money.
Absolutely not.
Ah, that's really good. That's really good. And then I guess the final thing, actually, there's probably one more, but the next to final thing is um, along with those big learnings that you had, for those people who are thinking about either in their corporate career now, or they may be at a position where they're thinking, I'm okay, but something's starting to not feel quite right. What is one piece of guidance you would give someone if they're kind of in that discernment process?
Well, the one thing that's probably most important is to network.
Mm,
Even during the pandemic, there are ways to network with people.
mm-hmm,
So give yourself some quiet time to think about, what is it that you don't like about where you're at right now? What is it that you would really like to do? And how can you connect with some people who might be doing that already? You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be open to networking to figure out what is next. I tell people, network or not work. Those are your options. So you can
okay.
either continue to grow and meet people and try new things. There is an organization for just about anything you can think of. There are meetup
That's so
groups
true.
for anything that
Mm-hmm.
you can think you might be interested in. And just so, don't feel that because you're in this corporate life that that's all there is. I watch
Mm-hmm.
people, even at Waste Management, feel, well, I've been here so long, I just have to stay. Nobody's
Mm-hmm.
going to pay me what I'm making here, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. Somebody might be willing to pay you more. You don't know
Ah,
because you've convinced
right.
yourself that this
Mm-hmm.
is all there is.
Right. Head trash. Head
Yes,
trash, as my trainer says. All that head trash. That is so good, Janice, because I like that network or not work. And not having to know all the answers right now because we think we have to have it all figured out before we do anything. And
right.
as one of my coaches says, the P in perfection stands for poison, right? You don't it's better to be in imperfect action than to be in perfect inaction. So
That's
just do
right.
something. Just do something and stay flexible and stay open so that you can pivot if you need to. Because sometimes it's not what you think it is, and that's okay. We can change at any moment as long
Yes.
as we're open to doing that.
One of the things I love about your website, and because your name is just such a perfect name for this, is,
Thank you.
that people need to get out of the rut, and
Yes.
and that, they should not jump off the ledge. And so
Yes.
oftentimes we jump off that imaginary ledge, and we don't have
Mm.
to. They should call you.
Thank you, Janice. I appreciate that. They absolutely should. And because I've been there and I know you've been there. If you've been
Hmm.
working more than a minute, You have
Yes.
been in that place where you find yourself doing that drudgery, right? You just keep doing the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. You're like, why does this feel so bad? And then why do I keep doing the same thing that just feels bad, right? Why can't I do something else? Or you're in an organization that truly makes you feel like you've lost your mind. You
Right.
really think, I've lost my mind. I'm not sleeping. I feel like I'm crazy. I know I said
Mm-hmm.
that. I know I used to be able to communicate well, right? And you really feel like, okay, I've just got to get out. I got to do something. And you end up hurting yourself because you're trying to get away from something, as opposed to, as you said a minute ago, take some quiet time.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you like? What do you want to do? What is it that you don't like? How do you begin to make a plan? Because sometimes you just need to sit still where you are
Right.
until you can make a plan to move. Now, if you are in danger, if it is a really bad situation, I say move, right? Nobody's telling
Absolutely.
you to stay someplace that's bad, but take the time, give yourself the grace to evaluate.
Yeah. There is a book that I often recommend to people when they're struggling with, they're really trying to move up the ladder and they
Mm-hmm.
seem to be struggling there. And it's called Hope for the Flowers.
Oh, I like
And
that. Hope for the
it's,
flowers.
I can't remember the name of the author right now, but
Mm-hmm.
it is a book about two caterpillars of all
Mm-hmm.
things. It is it's an hour-long read, but it is really about trying to climb that mountain, and
Ah.
the analogies used there
Mm-hmm.
are just perfect. And then having that conversation with someone else or having that conversation with
Right.
yourself, do you want to continue to be that caterpillar, or do you want to turn into a butterfly? And
Right.
it's a great read.
I'm writing that down. Hope for the flowers. I love that. And we will put that in the show notes as well, so that
Yes,
people
good.
remember to get that. So, well, Janice, I tell you what, this has been what I expected it to be. You are just incredible, and I think your journey is really going to encourage some people, because we are just trained. I won't say we're wired, although some of us are wired this way, but
Mhm.
we are trained to just do what other people tell us to do, to look and see what other people do. That's why social media is so popular, right? Everybody's trying to do what everybody else
Absolutely.
is doing. It's like sheep, right? We're trained to follow.
Mhm.
And then we get trained to lead, but we have to really work hard. Many people have to really work hard to lead because
Yeah.
we're used to the safety of numbers, the safety of doing the same thing that everybody else does. And I think your story around the willingness to move, the willingness to take a chance on entrepreneurship, because I'm telling you, entrepreneurship is not easy. It is not for
It is
sissies.
not easy.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. One other
You've
thing
got to decide you want it.
one thing I will say too is it's okay to not lead. I think too
Yes.
many people feel they have to push because leadership is the only way I'm going to get to X. It's okay to follow. It's okay.
It really is. It is all right if your aspiration is not to be CEO. That's
Right.
okay. Because one, everybody's not going to be CEO in the first place.
Right.
So, so that is a definite path, that has some
Mm-hmm.
definite hurdles and
Mm-hmm.
requirements to have. And the reality is, and we say this in HR all the time, right? You need people who are those good individual contributors or those good senior level managers or mid level managers who really are the backbone of an organization. They're the ones
Right.
that build, the networks, they build the talent, and they're really critical. And it's okay to be there. It's okay
Mm-hmm.
that you are working to live, not living to work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We
It's
just
okay. I love that.
yeah. And so it's just important for people to know that. So,
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. Well, Janice, I just appreciate so much the time that you gave me to be on the Rutledge Perspective. This was so good. I knew it. I'm sure we're going to do another one. I'm sure something's going to come
oh,
up
well,
and we're
I
going to do it
look
again.
forward to it. Thank you so much for
Yes.
inviting me. I loved it. And the work that you're doing is amazing. It's amazing.
Thank
And
you.
lots of people are benefiting and growing and getting better every day. So and that
Thank
makes it all
you.
worth it.
Well, I appreciate that. And I am so glad to have met you. And we will definitely be putting this out, guys. Please, 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 look Janice up, see what she's doing. She is fantastic.
Yeah,
Send her a
absolutely.
personalized message through LinkedIn. Don't just send that, please accept my LinkedIn invite. send her a personalized message and say, hey, I just love to have coffee, because you never know
That's
what will
right.
come out of that meeting. I'm just saying.
That's right. So true.
Yes. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Rutledge Perspective. I am so glad that you were here, and we will catch you next week. Take
All right.
care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
You've been watching the Rutledge Perspective. Thank you for tuning in. If we have given you a different perspective, or if you've learned something new that you hadn't thought about before, please subscribe to the Rutledge Perspective podcast where you get your favorite podcasts, and give us a like on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher. We really appreciate it. And your feedback is important as well, as we use that to inform our next episodes. You can also head over to my website, laurelrutledge.com, and download a freebie called Where's My Mojo that can really help you get out of your rut, or maybe talk you back off that ledge of frustration. You can also find previous episodes of the Rutledge Perspective on laurelrutledge.com. I really appreciate your tuning in. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.